Hello and welcome to Diaspora UA channel. My name is Andrei Azarkin, and today we're welcome our dear guest and our prospective congressman, the person who's running for U.S. Congress from the Congressional District 8 and Republican nominee Yuri Dashevsky. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, good morning. Whenever you're listening, everybody's welcome here.
So, Yuri, would you please give us a little bit brief description of your biography and where you're from and how you end up actually deciding to run for U.S. Congress?
First off, I must tell you that there is a website titled Yuri for the number US.com. YURI, number 4, US.com. As follows from the title, it's my campaign's website, and you can read about me, whatever I could put together on a short notice for the website, and I'm ready for any additional questions, of course, always. So you can write to me and ask your questions. And there's also a version in Russian and the version in Chinese of the programmatic documents. I would say it's basically the content of the flyers that I distribute in the community, also in Spanish. So we have all this there, but the bulk of the material, of course, is in English. And because I need English-speaking voters, which is the prevalent factor in this district. I have 42% of African-American population in this district, and I need to reach out to them. They're also Caribbean population, and so I'm deep in the business of this. I learned the ropes, as they say here, of how to run a campaign, and I don't know if I'll be able to write a book because it's all one thing that everybody does, it journey that I decided to undertake in about 4 months ago, 5 months ago maybe. It's something that's quite exceptional in my book. Although I kind of every 5-10 years I come up with some ideas that occupy more than the whole of me. So it's interesting stuff that comes up, and I follow the call. But long story short, and even shorter, I came to New York from Tashkent, Uzbekistan. My family, my father and my mother, are both kids who were taken from Ukraine by their parents during World War II, when Nazis were about to take over Odessa and Kiev. Odessa is for my dad, and Kiev is for my mother. She comes from Bershad, close to Kiev, someplace, a little shtetl. Maybe it's a town now. So they grew up and they met in Tashkent, and I became their older son. I studied architecture. I have a master's degree in architecture from Tashkent Polytechnical University, and as it's called now. And then my life took a turn in a direction that was very interesting. I worked in a small theater as a stage master, as a person who was, and in this theater, it's a studio that was very famous in former Soviet Union, and it's still famous now. They still exist, and it's called Ilhom, which means inspiration. And it was everybody was jack of all trades in the studio, except for the genius director of it. So we did a lot of work. We were actors, we were stage workers, we did everything necessary. So that was part of a number of years. And then I started doing things that what I was willing to do. I failed to become a student of Film Institute in Moscow. I tried to do it 3 or 4 times. I don't even remember how many times I tried to get in. They didn't take me for this or that reason. But I was invited by my friend to become his screenwriter. I worked with the director, and we made 3 films that one way or the other, but it was perestroika time already. And we won a number of prizes, and the films we made were shown. Very few people actually today remember what those films were. They were short, they were long, they never got big theatrical play. But again, it was a great journey for me, and I managed to become the member of the Filmmakers Union right before the Soviet Union fell apart. Actually, in the same year, 1991. So I got there without studying in the Film Institute. Basically, not every graduate of GEEK of Moscow Film Institute becomes a member of the Filmmakers Union. I became one, and I'm kind of proud of it to a certain degree because that's a little bit of an achievement. So I got on this film track, and then again, what happened? The film industry fell apart because Soviet Union ended, and the distribution deteriorated, and everybody was on their own. A lot of cooperatives, filmmaking organizations popped up, mushroomed around, and there was interesting time. And in my turn was I decided to make documentaries because there were stories that no one could tell. I thought in the area but me. And the first documentary I made was about the Bukharian Jews of Central Asia. Talking about Jews was kind of a forbidden topic in Soviet times. So I decided to make this film about the communities. I'm not a Bukharian Jew, but I feel, great interest to the history of the people. So I made this documentary, and when the representatives for United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees saw it, I was offered to make a documentary, and then another one. I had no idea that in the neighboring country of Tajikistan, the civil war is raging, and Uzbekistan is participating on the side of the communists fighting with the Wahhabis. And communists prevailed with help of Wahhabis is this fundamentalist militant branch of Islam. So they were pushed over the river of Amu Darya to Afghanistan. And the UN helped them to build a camp near Mazar-i Sharif. So they sent me to Mazar-i Sharif. And it was very interesting journey, which lasted about 7-10 days altogether. And I was in this camp, and I was in Mazar-i Sharif. It's of course a story for a different day maybe, but it was extremely hostile environment at first. Because people, when they learned where do you come from? Are you from? I'm from Tajikistan. Which village you from? I said, no, I'm from Uzbekistan. Wow, you're from Uzbekistan. The Uzbekis bombed us. Uzbekis had their tanks shooting at us. So I said, listen, I'm here with my camera. I have no arms on me. So here's my camera. I was not allowed. The Afghanis didn't let me bring my own cameraman. So I had to hire somebody on the spot with all the consequences because, it was not the quality that I would welcome, but that was the only way to do it. And film was made, and then the second film was made about. So the idea of those films was to facilitate the return of the refugees, because UN works not to help them settle a separate state on the territory of Afghanistan, but to get those people back and create the safe conditions for them to return. So the first documentary helped, and that the hostilities will be terminated. Well, they will cease. And then the second film was about the return, actually. And what people saw and the level of hostility was that, a civil war is neighbors killing neighbors, stealing, abducting each other grandmas, each other kids. Yesterday they were playing football, soccer in the street. Today they put those kids in, remember those huge canisters for milk that stores used to receive in all over Soviet Union. I don't know how many liters went in there, maybe 30, maybe 50. So they would kill kids, those who would fit into this canister, just putting them in there and then closing the lid. So all the dirt, human dirt that was available, came to Tajikistan to fight. And it was paid by the Saudis and was paid by the Qatar, by all those fundamentalists who thought that Wahhabis would be able to take over Tajikistan. And the mercenaries came of all kinds, from Transnistria, from wherever civil conflicts on the territory of former Soviet Union would flare up. People would travel to become mercenaries for this war. About 140,000 people were killed, which is population of Tajikistan. I have no number handy here, but it's probably around 1 million, 2 million people, very, very sparsely populated territory. So for them, it was huge loss. But with help of UN, and when people got kind of the taste of living in a steppe, in a desert in Afghanistan, they decided to come back. So we made another documentary. And then the fourth documentary that I made, and I'm talking about it because it was, again, a journey, part of my journey. I told a story that I wanted to tell for a very long time, the history of jazz music in Tashkent, in Uzbekistan. I had 3 friends. I couldn't say goodbye to them because I knew I was about to leave for the United States. I managed to get a small grant, which was $5,000. And during those crazy inflation times in Soviet Union in 1994, it was enough to make a documentary about my 3 friends. And I did it with top-level technology I could afford, which is kind of doesn't hold a handle to what any phone today has. So I came here to the United States in 1996. And since then, I looked at the tools I have at my disposal, and of course, I was very attracted to the idea of internet. And so I became a graphic designer first, and then I became a multimedia designer. And I was part of many projects. I lived in New Jersey first for 2.5 years, probably, and then I moved to Brooklyn, New York, where I live right now. And I was part of many projects, as I said, all pretty much ahead of their time. So I didn't become like a millionaire. I was given stock options, all those things. But they were all good ideas. A lot of people use these ideas now. But at that time, it was before broadband. It was modems with all this accompanying stuff. With all this music they played in your ears while they were connecting. So I did this all, and then we did a big how is it called? It was a big game on the internet. It was basically a novel, an adventure novel where people read, and they can, and there are some treasures that you can win, or if you put the puzzle together, and if you can decipher the puzzle that we have for you. And there were serious prizes in this game. It was called Search for E. And even New York Times wrote about it. It was absolutely anonymous project. Nobody knew our names. And we were competing with the project that was originated by the movie Minority Report. So they were comparing, and both games, multiplayer online, multimedia online role-playing games. It's called this genre. So they were mocking us, we were mocking them eventually, but it was fun till it ended. And then I moved into a PR situation. My English, which I came here speaking English. My mother is an English teacher. But the big problem of those who come here speaking English, we have no ability to understand what people are talking about around us. And so by then, after 10 years, maybe in this country, I learned to understand almost everything that is said in the movies, said on the streets, and anywhere in the market. I could make jokes. I could write stories. I did write a couple of stories. I wrote screenplay or two. So I got back to what I liked most in my. It was PR. I worked as a PR man for the most famous New York deli called Katz's Delicatessen, which is well over 100 years old. I would say they're what 88, 1888 is the year that they say they started then. On the Lower Side, a lot of movies were shot there. In particular, it's When Harry Met Sally, the famous fake orgasm scene was shot there. It's a place that attracts generations after generations after generations of people who came to this country from Ukraine, in large part, also from Poland, also from Romania. Jewish population that was here in New York, and they never saw anything like it. Jews rarely had a cow. Almost always it was a chicken, because to get a cow you have to get 5, 6, 10 maybe rich families to buy this cow. And cows bring milk, or a bull. Bull makes cows. So it was something new to them. It became very popular, and it was mostly male population on the Lower Side in the end of 19th century, early in the 20th century. So when they managed to bring the families back to the United States, they had a lot of stories to tell, and they brought them to the places that were most stunning to them. And Katz's Delicatessen was one of those places. And there are families who come there for almost a century, generation after generation. That's their way to preserve the memory of where they came from. So that was that. And then from that PR and talking too much and writing too much, I became an interpreter, official interpreter in many interesting New York projects. Again, when businesses used to try to start a store, say some company from Russia or from Ukraine would come, and they would explore the opportunities. We would go to the best advertising agencies. We would go to the practitioners of this merchandising, all those things, computerizing, and I learned a lot about how it's organized. And I was absolutely in awe of what I learned, because it's seriously a big operation with everything being thought through, and a lot of things that track human behavior and are so disturbing today, they originate in those early studies of studying the human behavior and how we respond and what do we want when we go to store, and how we travel from which shelf to which shelf, and when we come to pay for it, how we react. So all those things are very interesting. And of course, the judicial system of the United States was a special interest. It's the best system in the world until recently. So that was also a source of knowledge for me. So all of it ended when COVID situation took place. And I did what almost everybody did. I went to my computer, I created a YouTube account, and I started talking to people, hoping to become somewhat of not like Kim Kardashian exactly, but someone who would tell people, because Russians are eager to know what's going on in the United States, what's going on in the politics. And it was 1920. It was the year of that became last year of President Trump's presidency. I was already on the Russian-speaking radio here in Brooklyn, and I just cannot stop explaining things to people. Cannot stop thinking about things that needs explanation. And I met a lot of interesting people when I thought that I should have some guests. And eventually I built a channel that acquired quite a following of almost 10,000 people, which is not much by internet standards and influencer standards. But I have yet to see a 10,000 people channel. It was even less than, where we raised $30,000 plus dollars for Israel in a month, when we raised $30,000 plus dollars for Ukraine in a month, and continue fundraising in this direction. So this became something that organically grew into an offer to run for Congress on behalf of Republican and conservative parties of Brooklyn. I was quite instrumental. I was told I played a major role in electing Inna Vernikov, who is a councilwoman in the city council from our district. She's of Russian, Ukrainian Jewish extraction, speaks Russian. She's from Chernivtsi. and Chernovtsi, right? So she's from there, and she's representing us. And I was her internet outreach guy who, on my stream, I simply just did what is called ad lib. So I was just talking about her, what I know about her, and I learned new things about her, and asked her questions, interviewed by me, and she was one of my main endorsers in the early stages of my campaign, and her name means a lot to our people here. So she's representing properly what is our area, Brighton Beach and Shipshead Bay. So when I started doing it running my campaign in end of April, May, end of April, May, I did it from the donations given to me on the website. And it was very interesting journey because I learned what needs to be done and what people respond best to, especially when you have the money to throw at anybody who's coming to you with any projects. And I got so many offers, all of them with inflated prices. And you can do so much with so little in this country, money-wise. But you have to have the drive, and I have the drive. It's a personal journey for me, besides what I see as wrong of what's going on in this country. I talk to anybody and everybody. Today, I spoke with the Republican Party leaders. I spoke with in a Pakistani mosque, and I distributed flyers on Avenue U to mostly in Chinese. And now I have my second hour online recording things that may interest some people. So it's pretty active lifestyle.
Okay, good. Yuri, the fact that you are a first-generation immigrant, how does it help you to communicate with your prospective constituents?
You know, when you say, I don't know, not too many people had this kind of adventure, of course, when they come to this country. And I would think, in my manner of thinking, that people would ask me about Russia being, Soviet Union being our arch rival or enemy, whatever, word, epithet would people prefer. Or they would remember the old communist influence here, or new communist influence here, and say, "Are you one of those who's bringing us socialism, etc.?" I never encountered anything like this. Nobody brought connection between me and Julius and Rosenberg was on the face.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
our district is, as you know, is pretty multicultural, multinational,
Very.
multi-religional, let's put
Yes.
it this way. How do you communicate with different communities? For instance, you just said that you've been to a Pakistani mosque.
Yeah.
And the Pakistanis are pretty conservative Muslims, as we know. How would they react to the fact that you, ethnic Jew, Republican, coming to their mosque and basically ask them to vote for you? What would they think and what would they tell you, and how would you actually convince them that it's the right thing to do?
You know what? It didn't take much convincing. It was my second speech in a mosque, and I think today I had my best speech in English in a situation like this. And I was called in at the end of the service, the prayer, and I welcomed everybody. And I said that, do you know what happened in Dearborn, Michigan, 3 days ago? Some of them nodded. I'm not sure they heard about it. Maybe they heard about it. But I said there was a Muslim community. Dearborn is the most populated Muslim city in the most dense population, Muslim population in the United States is in Dearborn, Michigan. I think it's over 1 million people living in the same place. So there was a meeting of the Board of Education, and the audience was about 200, 300 people maybe in the same room, and they were all Muslim. And they gave hell to this Board of Education. because they said, listen, it's not that it's against our religion. It's just against humanity to teach kids transsexuality, sexuality in such an early age. And nobody could say anything to them because they were Muslims. You can bash Irish, you can bash Italian, you can, to some extent, argue with Jews, and you don't touch mostly Russians, but you can kind of laugh at us. Russian, I'm meaning Russian-speaking people, because we're funny, and I'm proud of that. But you cannot touch Muslim. That's the reputation that this group has, and it's part of reality. We may like it, we may not like it, but this is how it is. So this Board of Education was just sitting there and taking it, and the whole world, with help of course, the first Fox News in the first place, and then other channels, showed what happened there, and people saw that the king is naked. It was really the truth, without any masquerade that usually accompanies the gatherings of public representatives in the United States. Everybody tries to have some decorum, some propriety, etc., and not to tell the truth. So that was not the case. And so it took me like 10 times less, 10 times less time to tell the story to the those who were in the mosques. And I saw that they're proud of that. And it's true. And they say, we're going to sit here and look how our children are being indoctrinated with this nonsense. That's it. That's the first opening that I had. And then I said that, nobody likes it. Jews don't like it. Christians don't like it. I always say to them that I am a Jew. I put it right front and center. I started my speech in the previous mosque with that, but this time, this story that I just told, was more important. So that's how we talked, and then I distributed the flyers. I welcomed them. I said, "Listen, you are mostly businessmen here. They own a lot of groceries. They own a lot of gas stations. Those people, and they know how to make a living. They speak poor English sometimes. They read avidly." And they are reasonably educated people. And they, of course, religion is, I love religion. I love religious people. I love people, to the point where they don't want to kill somebody, of course. But, and we are used we are conditioned to think that Christianity is all about cruelty to people, and Inquisition, and the Crusades, and things like this. And of course, St. Bartholomew's Night, things of that nature. And Muslim culture is about cruelty. And there was also not exactly the whole of Islam cruelty, because there are things that Islam created, and a lot of things that Islam preserved, like ancient knowledge, ancient Greek philosophers that were during the years of Al-Andalus, which is now Andalusia. They were preserved, rediscovered, translated into Arabic, and then back into European languages from that. So it's an interesting story. It's at this point, it's more important to build bridges when we are inside the country here. We have to relearn how to live in peace with each other. Today, the hostilities between the Jews and the Muslims say there's much less hostility than between the Republicans and Democrats. Don't you agree with me?
Yes, I totally agree with you. And more than that, I actually believe we have a cold civil war in our country. And it's quite dangerous situation. And, obviously we need some changes, and we need some deeper look into it. And we need somebody to actually put an end to that madness that we are experiencing in the past 2 years. And that's the reason why we have you on this program, because you're running for U.S. Congress. And obviously the fact that you are first-generation immigrant from former Soviet Union. You're Russian-speaking Jew and talking to Muslims, basically. And you know, and we know that New York City is a deep blue state and deep blue. I'm sorry, it's deep blue city in predominantly red state, and that always been
Geographically, not population-wise.
absolutely yes. But it's always been like almost like a tiebreaker for New York. The fact that New York City basically outweighs the rest of the state. And when you talk to those minorities, even though I would rather put the fact that minorities are no longer minorities in our city, because we have almost like 1 million probably Russian speaking. I wouldn't say Russian speaking. I would say former Soviet republics, residents of former Soviet republics living in New York City. And as you probably know, the immigrants, especially first generation immigrants, they tend to vote liberal. They tend to vote Democrat. And the Democrats were actually actively using the minorities to get their votes through promises, and especially that in densely populated cities like Chicago, New York, Detroit, Philadelphia, that's always been a major tiebreaker. So you're running as a Republican, a conservative. What do you think has changed, and why do you think you have better chances than your opponent in that race?
If everybody noticed by that point, it's my second appearance on the Diaspora UA. I have also a MAGA cap. So I qualify for Ultra MAGA, Super Ultra MAGA.
They would automatically call you a Putin supporter, Putin lover in liberal media.
In liberal media,
in
they
Ukraine.
may call me this, but in Ukraine, yeah, that's kind of a detour from what we are busy with here, to be honest with you, because we are, of course, front in the United States. United States today is in a very precarious situation, and if we don't take care of the United States this year, there'll be nobody to notice or not to notice if Ukraine exists on the globe altogether. And it's important that the United States will remain, I wouldn't call the global policeman, but someone who serves the nearest acceptable level of a father of a family. It's very hard to grow up in a fatherless family.
I agree. I would rather call it global sheriff, which is more, I would say, mild term that somebody has to, oversee the world's peace. And if somebody's bad, it needs to be obviously taken care of and punished. So, and we see that in past 2 years of Biden administration, the globe and the world is actually being in havoc. And unfortunately, the mainstream media, as you know, that globally there is no presence or very little presence of American conservative media. And just recently, as you know, the global media platform Twitter has been acquired by Elon Musk, and hopefully that will bring some change, but that remain to be seen. But as of now, there is very little presence of conservative voices globally. That mostly has been taken by CNN, MSNBC, and Washington Post, and New York Times, and Los Angeles Times, et cetera, and they create that opinion that we Republicans and conservatives are a threat to the democracy. They openly call us fascists. They openly call us insurrectionists. They openly call us anti-democracy supporters or whatnot. So, and that's really that's extremely dangerous to further divide the nation that's been already so divided. So, what would you do and how would you approach this problem if you elected?
That's the answer. Elected. First of all, I'm approaching this problem by trying to get elected.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, like, hopefully, and that's the reason why we have that program,
Yeah,
is to bring you to our viewers, and so they know you, your opinions, your views,
sure.
and what's your take on the domestic situation. And we both know that the situation in our countries is getting worse and worse by the day. So that's the reason why we actually have you as a candidate from our congressional district. And our channel basically aimed at Ukrainian speaking and Russian speaking Ukrainian diaspora, which is, we have plenty in Brooklyn. And we would like to have them know you better and get your message to them, because the election's right around the corner and somebody already have to, cannot make the decision yet. They may be still wavering between you and the other, your opponent. So that's the reason.
What's my opponent's name?
Honestly, I don't know. I'm voting for you.
That's exactly what my point. Nobody knows my opponent's name. Like 90%. You ask anybody in the street, who's your representative? Who represents you in the U.S. Congress? They don't know. This man never came to any place where I went to. He never went to black areas. He never went to. He goes to. He's from Crown Heights, so he tries to secure the Jewish voice, and he goes to some places. But his main job is to channel Washington politics, to channel all those educational craziness, to channel all this, get out of jail free card, Soros's ideas. But I digress. So I am aware that, and I know it from seeing people in the streets. I give them a brochure. I have as I said, in many languages. And I say, I'm your representative. I'm your candidate for Congress. Please take my brochure, read it. And I see, I kind of, not my first rodeo, so to speak, in this life. So I see people from Ukraine. I can see people from Belarus. And I see that they understand what I'm saying, but they look differently the other way. So they think that if Republicans win Congress, then Republicans would sell Ukraine to Putin. That's how I see it. I cannot put it in straighter terms. This is how people see it. So they turn away from supporting Republicans. So for this, I have two pills. One is hard pill to swallow. One is soft pill to swallow. Which one comes first?
Your choice.
No, you pick.
I
offer many languages, many ways to.
No,
to solve
I understand.
problems.
I understand, but I always prefer to know the truth, even.
Let's start with the hard one, right?
Correct.
So the hard choice kind of is that this fall, November 8th, Congress will become Republican. It will become, with me or without me, it will be Republican. So I don't know what this whole story with Paul Pelosi being attacked tonight, how it affects the fate of Nancy Pelosi and stuff like that. Will there be some intramural fighting there? But it will become Republican. People are angry. People are upset. Even if they're silent, they fear, they're cynical, they're depressed, but they will go and vote. And there is higher probability than a Democrat would vote Republican than the other way around. So this is a fact. So friends, you need friends in Congress. When I get elected, I will support Ukraine with the same fervor with which I raise money for Ukraine on my YouTube channel. You may be aware of that. First days of war, we raised immediately $2,000. We bought the I think we started writing to each other those days when I asked you which night vision goggles are best to send, and we got some for more like what's used for hunting here in the States, not the military grade, but that worked for the first weeks of war, and I think they're still in use. It's quality product. It's not military grade, as I said, but it worked for the first time, and we started helping with production of the vest body armor, really military grade, and people were sending us the sample of the videos where they tested it. It was a real on a shooting range with AK-47s for the penetration, and they were good quality products. So we continue raising funds and sending it to Ukraine in a way that we don't no one of us takes anything off this process. Nobody's making money on this, but we just fully collect money and we send it there. Now it's an American medical scientist by name of Kevin Cohen, I think his name is, and he's there in Ukraine. He goes there almost like every month for 2 weeks. He lives in Denver, Colorado area, and he helps people from, teaching them how to apply modern medical implements, how to help stop bleeding,
how to treat wounds and stuff like that.
How to treat wounds. He knows everything about it, and he learned Ukrainian, and he's Jewish too. So that's the story. So if you vote for me, you vote for a friend of Ukraine in Congress. I am absolutely flabbergasted by such high-profile figures as Tucker Carlson. My former hero, help me here, Peterson.
Jordan Peterson?
Jordan Peterson. Absolutely disgusting performance. I talked about it a number of times, and his enemies would be happy to hear that probably, but he's really a very strong man who just went a little bit nuts to if you call cat a cat. So he just literally he's trying to master all those internet thingies when you cut a super short videos, just like under a minute. So you tell people the gist of the knowledge they need to know. And he decided to record a video where he says, close to the original, that Russia is much more important than Ukraine. Russia is a country with rich history. And he used to be a collector of social realism style paintings. I haven't seen his collection, but he's a very knowledgeable, very strong man. Mm-hmm. And then he says, do you even know, what do you know about Ukraine? Have you ever heard of Holodomor? And I'm taken aback. What's Holodomor? He meant Golodomor, Ukraine, right? So he's reading it off a monitor. He's dyslexic, and still he tries to root for Russia.
Okay, Yuri. With that note, it's very important actually, and it's a big problem. What in your opinion is the reason why? Where is that disconnection of the Republican most influential, I would say, anchors, hosts? Where is the disconnection with reality when it comes to Ukraine? Why is it I like Tucker Carlson. 90% of what he says is I'm totally agree with when it comes to domestic issues. I totally agree with this. But when he talks about Ukraine, he's delusional. When he says there is a corruption in Ukraine, yes, there is corruption in Ukraine, but this well as corruption in other countries. So there's nothing unique about that. And that the fact that this war is basically made possible since Biden took office, and we know that every time when the Democrat is in White House, Ukraine is damaged. President Clinton took nuclear arms from Ukraine.
A Democrat too.
He's Democrat, definitely. Barack Obama, 2014, and Joe Biden was calling Turchinov and said, do not fire back. Do not resist the
Move a
annexation
finger, yeah.
of Crimea, correct? And
All
now,
Democrats, all Democrats.
exactly, and that's my point. And every time I speak to Ukrainian community and Ukrainian diaspora, especially in Ukraine, I only ask them one question: how many cruise missiles have been launched onto Ukraine during the Trump administration? The answer is zero. But they keep thinking basically that the Republicans, and especially Trumpers, as we are pretty much, because I also share the MAGA agenda and I like it. But they see us as traitors. They think that we will betray Ukraine and we will just, you know, let them be and stop supporting. Where is the disconnection? Where that comes from? Why the Republican super popular hosts like I said, Tucker Carlson and Jordan Peterson and others? Why is it so they're misinformed, or they're just, this is a lack of understanding of what's going on? And the next question will be, I wouldn't say when, I would rather say if, because as you know, it's not over until it's over. But I do hope, and I'm pretty sure that you will get the seat in Congress. But still, will you visit Ukraine after you get elected?
Of course I will.
Great.
Of course I will. I'll go to every ally of the United States first, and I would talk to them, and I would say very affirmatively that you have a friend in United States Congress. It's important to your friends come first, and then you together take care of the enemies. But I would also add, to the roster of reasons that you ascribe to Tucker Carlson and other hosts, and multitudes of people on the internet who kind of root for Putin. De facto. I don't know if they're paid, but today world is, media people today is a puppets without a puppet master. That's my opinion. We cannot locate a puppet master. We're too dumb for that. I mean, so the puppets are this here, or crazies take over the asylum. But there's also one thing that I wanted to say. It's that we don't know things that they know. That's why they come to those conclusions. But unless they present the ideas that drove them to that conclusion, we cannot have an intelligent discussion with them. We just have to accept it or reject it, the opinion of Tucker Carlson or Jordan Peterson. And really, as the war machine of Russia is, war power of Russia, military power of Russia is exaggerated, so are the ideas that Russia brought to the world culture. I'm not a fan of, banning Tchaikovsky or Dostoevsky, or changing one's attitude towards Dashevsky, but the based on the Putin's war. But what's going on is that, let me phrase it properly. Russia was the country that was, for its own good, actually, it was very good for Russia. They were open to many ideas, although the end was very cruel, like it was with brothers Fioravanti, who built Kremlin. They were thrown into jail by Ivan the Terrible. And it was really a lot of people brought ideas, like Marius Petipa built what became the Bolshoi Theater, the ballet, and the say Moscow Conservatory was built with the money that were paid to Nikolai Rubinstein, who traveled to United States with concerts, toured here, and it was by Steinway, the producer of pianos, manufacturer of pianos at the time. So Russia was always very dependent on the West and on the East when we're talking about the horde times, the Mongols and everything. So Russia's history is written by very talented people, but it's far from reality, starting with Alexander Nevsky and if you look at the origins of Russia, and I don't mean to denigrate as a whole, but Vikings started Russia in 9th century, 10th century, somewhere at that time. And those who ruled Russia were never Russians, actually. They were closer to the east or closer to the west. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Yuri, that's a good point, actually. An interesting point, the fact that when you speak about the Russian history and Russian culture, I always say that 550 years ago, actually, the Russia chose her path, basically. And for about five and a half centuries, Russia didn't have any freedom, didn't have any democracy or voting. And when I say 550 years, what I mean by that, that is that maybe some of our listeners or viewers don't know about that. In year 1478, there was the end of Moscow-Novgorod War, and there was two models: Moscovian, dictatorship kind of model, and there was a Novgorod, which was a republic, which is entirely and completely European, pro-European city. And there was a war between them, and the Moscow Tsar, actually he wasn't called Tsar by then, he called himself Tsar after that war, when he conquered the city of Novgorod, and basically he destroyed the only real opposition to his ultimate power, and he became a Tsar of the unified Russian state. So my point is that if that war was won by the other side, by Novgorod, by city of Novgorod, Russia would be a completely different country today, just like Finland, just like Sweden, Norway, Netherlands, you name it. And that's the reason why I'm trying to bring that attention to those history points and key topics that say Russia had choice and still has choice. And if we actually help the right people and right forces in Russia to choose the right path, completely reject that, imperial mentality, imperial system that's been inherited for five and a half centuries, we would probably have a different country, different world, and perhaps the whole different outlook of the future. So when people say that we need to ban everything Russian, I always say there's not just one Russia. Like, for example, I'm ethnic Russian, but I am not Russian citizen. I've never been Russian citizen. I wasn't born in Russia. I never paid taxes in Russia. And in this particular conflict between Russia and Ukraine, I'm completely 100% on the side of Ukraine. I'm trying to help them as much as I can. And the reason why I'm actually being host on Ukrainian Diaspora TV is that fact also. That's why we welcome here all people of all backgrounds, religions, but we want to share our love for Ukraine and our support to Ukraine, and would like to have you, or as a prospective candidate, represent as well a Ukrainian diaspora. As you know, there are probably about maybe over 1 million ethnic Ukrainians who live in the United States, and they're U.S. citizens. And it's really important for Republicans to have their votes as well. And for that, that's the reason I actually ask you those questions, to help Republicans understand that Ukrainians have very, very strong, feelings about this war. They're extremely worried about it and concerned about it. And because, like you said, Republicans most likely, and almost, I wouldn't say guaranteed, but very high chances that the Congress will be Republican. We need to send them a clear message. There's nothing to worry about. We're not your enemies. We're friends, and we would help you even more if we will become majority.
I think that Russia did a great damage. Putin did great damage to his own country. And I think that the cultural reputation of Russia and the political reputation of Russia is damaged. It's not for next 100 years, but for 50 years for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of countries wouldn't be willing to have anything to do with Russia, whatever the outcome. I shudder to say it, whatever the outcome, people won't be willing to deal with Russia. And what's going on today is Putin is trying to impress China. It's his behavior. That's what, of course, his own standing in his country is, it is what it is, as they say. But I want to see Ukraine in its borders, at least prior to 2014. So Ukraine must be what it was, and Russia must be put back behind the what they call in St. Petersburg "поребрик." So they got to be there and left to their own devices. No contacts. The sanctions should continue against Russia until they would withdraw for Ukraine behind the border, and they would take care of Putin, re-elect him, or do whatever is necessary. So it would take at least 25 years before they prove that new government of Russia is worthy of trust and is something of a partner. And we can. So you know what aches me, what is like a major pain in my heart, is that Joe Biden could, upon his becoming president of the United States and seeing what's going on in Ukraine and this aggression and this war, he could have significantly diminish the effect of this war if he would just announce that we are restarting the Keystone XL pipeline. That would drop the price. I'm not even talking about starting the actual thing. Just say it and watch the reaction, the world's reaction, and it would be a devastating blow, without just moving a dollar from one pocket to another. Price of oil would go down, but the markets, of course, they make too much money. That's the fact on the oil futures and stuff like that. So he didn't do that. He didn't do what was in the interest of the world peace. I mean, peace in Ukraine in this case, because I hate this notion of world peace. It would never happen. But we have to be able to take care of the emergencies and the hostilities that flare up. If we willingly or unwillingly, they come up. It will be so. It was so that since the beginning of time, and this will continue. So we have to be an effective cop. I insist on the word cop because, first of all, I grew up in the era of corporal punishment. So nothing works like corporal punishment. If you want to get a good idea into a young boy's head, you got to slap him good.
And I would like to say that you're right, absolutely. And I would say that compared to the previous administration, when you say there was no world peace, we were pretty close to that actually in the past 4 years. If you notice that during the Trump administration, we had almost no hostilities between Israel and Arab nations. There were Abraham Accords that were secured by the Trump administration, and that seemed absolutely impossible. On top of that, Trump administration, and he approved basically moving the U.S. embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. He acknowledged the right of Israel over Golan Heights, and at the same time, he secured a peace with I believe, United Arab Emirates and Bahrain and some other Arab nations. There were direct flights from between Israel and those countries, and things looked pretty good. And that's just that one part of the world. And we know that since Biden took office, literally like a few months after, Israel was hit by the missile attacks, the heaviest missile attacks in 4 years. And that's not a coincidence. And I believe the same thing that happened between Serbia and Kosovo, the tension between China and Taiwan, the war in Ukraine, and that all seems. It doesn't seem the coincidence. It seems like the previous administration was managing, if you want to say that, managing the world affairs much more efficiently, and the world was in better and safer place. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. That's why MAGA. That's why
That
strong America is is fundamental to the peace in the world. Not because we're going to be, I said the World Cup, but we not be standing with the club over the head of every
with a whip,
dictator,
with a club,
with
yeah.
the whip, with anything, with the yeah. So we just offer people to do something. People need to do something in this country included. People need to be free to go about free enterprise, forgive the pun. They should be able to become small business people. They shouldn't be, their aspirations shouldn't be working for the government. They shouldn't be willing to become one of those 87,000 IRS agents that this administration is threatening us with. And this is, let's do this. Let's build something. That's the cornerstone of Donald Trump's philosophy in the world. He would come to a place where he knew every dictator. He knew everything about their thinking, their aspirations, and he knew how to handle them.
Right, and I totally agree with you on the fact that the world lefts, the globalists were blaming him for having good relationship, which I'm not quite sure where they took it from, why it says good. He was able to have relationship and negotiate with dictators, basically, and in the meantime preserve our interests. Think about it. Donald Trump was the only sitting president who alone walked into North Korea. If you remember, they had a meeting in Panmunjom in that DMZ
zone there. Yes,
correct. And he was respected. He was respected by all world outlaws. You name it, like Kim Jong-un and Putin and Lukashenko and others. Why? And when I was thinking about it, I realized why, because they saw him as a man with a character.
His values. Those dictators.
Values, not just values, but the he was. His resolution, basically, his willingness to say what he did, say what he promised. Basically, if he says, well, he made peace with Taliban, and nobody thought it was possible. And I remember when he said, well, he had a conversation with one of the Taliban leaders and said, "I know where your family
You will
lives."
never forget it. Let us forget about this conversation.
Right.
Hey, Abdul.
Exactly.
Is
And
this your house?
That worked. And it's like I would even compare him like the alpha wolf in the pack. And when you live in the world full of dictators, the only thing they respect, if someone is stronger than them, someone who's not afraid to go against them and basically dictate the will of the free world. No, we're not going to be intimidated. No, we will not back out. No, we will not back down. As you know, his response to the chemical attacks in Syria that Russians did, he just sent 60 Tomahawks missiles and took care of the problem. He took care of the Wagner battalion in Syria, and Putin did nothing. That's the resolution. That's the firmness of the decisions of the President of the United States. And we were respected. And the reason why we respected is because we had a different person in the White House, which unfortunately we don't have. So to me, it's not about Trump personally. It's about the how the President of the United States should look like, and what he should say, what he should do. And when we look at the current president, unfortunately, he's not respected. Plain simple.
It's also, it's a Democrat thing. They don't know how to govern. They don't know how to do it, and they, important thing to establish the respect, mutual respect. Sometimes, not to threat with something you're not gonna do. It was like Obama every 5 minutes. This is a red line. We just one step, and we'll hit you with all our military might. Never happened. Never happened. Always come empty-handed. Like with Biden,
Right.
he went to Venezuela, he went to the Saudis. No one gave him anything. Trump never threatened anybody with something he was not going to do, actually. That's important in human relations. And second, what is also important, and I wouldn't compare in the slightest my experiences during the campaign with what Donald Trump did in the world. I just would like to note that when you come to people, you look where you connect with them, and you start there. You don't come with the notion that, we're the strongest country in the world. Only when it comes to the fisticuffs, so to speak, then you can say you have a bigger button. But you come with an assumption to a much weaker countries like North Korea that you are equals, and you understand that they have their own interests. It's very interesting. After working in the New York court, and the Russian speakers come, they are of all countries, former Soviet Union. They come, they cannot understand that they are mostly tenants who I worked with. I was in the housing court for about a year. They don't understand that the other side, that the landlord has the same rights as they do in this country. Nobody assumes that the landlord is a bad guy. They talk to the neighbors, they talk to the friends. Everybody says, "Oh, the landlords," and you should see our landlord. He's much worse. Oh, we have a good one. So this is something that people don't get. In the heart of hearts, it takes experience in business to understand that the other side has its own interests. If their interests are outside of business, you shouldn't have business with them. It's the end of conversation. But if they want something, you got to talk about what they want. And this is why Donald Trump was treated as Putin's ally and Kim Jong-un's ally and everybody else, because he wanted to know, what do you want, actually? It was my question when the war broke out, when Putin went into Ukraine. What does he want? He had so much money. He could peacefully, by hook or by crook, offer some things to Ukraine, and maybe it could spark a conversation if you wanted to buy out part of Ukraine, just to put it bluntly. There could have been a way before he went full war on Ukraine. There could be a way to. The countries buy each other sometimes. Donald Trump wanted to buy Greenland. Just an example. Because the very few people.
Well, I don't think he was very serious about that, but yeah.
No, absolutely serious. No, it was the idea that he threw around in part because it seemed to him so interesting that nobody's developing Greenland. It's so huge. And okay, enough about Greenland. We touched upon many subjects today, but the thing was that Ukraine and Russia used to share a lot economically. A lot of people from Ukraine did business in Russia and vice versa. So there was a way to make Ukraine like in Yanukovych's time, right? To try and install a person in a way that would be non-military. They tried to do it with Yanukovych, right? It didn't end well. Maidan happened, and Ukraine went on their free development, which was absolutely welcomed by so many people. But you see, my view is could be peculiar, it could be conspirology inspired, but I think that Putin and Biden have certain common interests in Ukraine. Biden, for many years in U.S. politics, he was looking for countries that would become a clearinghouse for congressmen to become rich, American politicians, both parties, eventually. We can guarantee loans, we can forgive loans, we can give money to our friends here who would keep us in power forever. And Ukraine, unfortunately, was this type of country, especially since it became independent in when Soviet Union fell apart.
Mm.
And those who lived there at the time knew how situation changed in every republic, basically. And the Baltic republics were more moderate in this, but in Uzbekistan, Ukraine, I'm afraid, also a lot of raiding happened, a lot of new what's an equivalent of new Russians, new Ukrainians, new Uzbeks, new Kyrgyz emerged, and it was not pretty. So on this wave, a lot of things got interconnected on this level. So if he wanted it, Ukraine, he could have good part of it without going to war. This is how I think about it. I'm sorry, I lived in Uzbekistan. I know a lot of countries would love to have part of Uzbekistan or have influence in Uzbekistan. They come. It seemed like they gained some ground, but then they were pushed out by other countries that wanted also a piece of the same Uzbeki lepioshka.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it didn't work. But what Biden had in there, in his interest, of course, was Burisma type deals. And it was something that he brought Obama there when Obama was president or senator. So they were all trying to launder some money from American taxpayers, from our hardworking hard-earned dollars taken from us as taxes, just to launder them through help to Ukraine, through American companies that would keep them in power forever, like unions and stuff like that. So, and this is a huge scandal. If all this information would come to light, I want to remind everybody that the conversation between Donald Trump and President Zelensky, when Trump said, "You have to," I would like to ask you to announce that you are about to start an investigation into Burisma. He didn't say, "I want you to investigate Joe Biden or Hunter Biden." Nothing of the sort. He only said that I would like you to make an announcement about this. And that was enough. That they understood it as a signal. That's why this Windman guy went out to start what became the impeachment proceedings.
Correct.
Procedure for Donald Trump, and it failed spectacularly. But it scared the bejesus out of it scared the bejesus out of the Democrats who were involved, and of Republicans as well, who had deals in Ukraine and similar countries. It was not uniquely Ukraine situation, and so they kind of reached, as they say, the level of understanding. And that's why Bill Burns went to Russia, to Moscow, when he met with Putin, they say. Not reflected in any documents, but CIA, from CIA to KGB. So, in my scenario, and I remind everybody that I'm a screenwriter, still, once a screenwriter, always a screenwriter. So, in my scenario, it was a deal, and everybody's talking about it, and there are some signals that it has some rooting in the reality, that Putin promised to everything to be over in a week to Biden. And Biden said, okay, unless, as he said, Russia does something like to deepen incursion, that would be okay. So that's what Putin promised to him. A swift operation, take out Zelensky, install Yanukovych or similar figure, and make Ukraine a satellite forever.
Well, just like Belarus, pretty much.
Very fast, yeah. The Belarus got there differently, but that's what it is. So, and then in return, this newly elected in return, this newly installed president of Ukraine would iron out every wrinkle regarding the Biden family, regarding Congress, and so everything Biden did in the prelude to war. is to show doing this signaling to Putin and to the world, if you read it correctly, properly, and with attention, that he's going along with this fact that Putin will attack Ukraine, and that he offered Zelensky to evacuate him, and then he moved the embassy out of signal, which is out of Kiev, which is a major signal that America is not resisting this slew of events, this course of events. No, we understand there will be war, and we are moving our embassy because we don't want our people damaged. And Russia's embassy remained there.
I just wanted to, I wanted to basically note that we didn't pull our embassy of Kabul actually until like the very last couple of days, until we evacuated in mass and in very Saigon style, as you remembered. Exactly. And here we pulled out the embassy and our diplomatic staff of Ukraine even before the shots were fired, which is quite unique. Yeah, and I totally agree with you. Matter of fact, what you're saying is, to me and to many others, it's crystal clear and quite obvious. But for whatever reason, many people still don't, they don't connect the dots. For whatever reason, they just think that Biden administration was helping Ukraine, and it's still helping Ukraine. And to some extent, it does in a way, well, because they have to react somehow. But the actions of this administration since the beginning of the first meeting of Biden and Putin, which was scheduled to last, I believe, was like 5 hours and lasted for 2 hours. It told me that everything was agreed pretty much beforehand. However, those little details, for whatever reason, it's not being discussed, not being covered by media, and not being even investigated. So what would you say when the Republican will take over, hopefully, Congress? Will you support any formal investigation into those dealings with Ukraine?
It would be a very interesting moment if we decide to go there and try to investigate all this. We have so many things to investigate.
I totally agree with you.
It's so much work here with all the debacle of supporting the green energy projects, how those companies fell like dominoes after getting like $500 million,
right?
$500 billion.
But we all know it's a money laundering machine. That's the whole thing with the Green Deal, with the big pharma, and this war as well. To me, it almost seems like the Democrats are trying to launder money anywhere they possibly can during the Biden administration, and it almost seems like the Titanic is sinking, that they're trying to save as much as they can and get as much as they can before taking off. It's very sad, but my point is, it's my personal opinion. Again, I just wanted to make it crystal clear. We cannot move forward as a nation until we find out what happened in 2020 elections. Would you agree with me on
that? Of course, but we have to move forward and chew gum at the same time. That's an all-American saying. We have to move forward. We have to, you see, it's important to investigate it. But it shouldn't be done in a manner that would be front and center to when there will be results. Then we'll talk about it. Let people who we trust go and do it, and not like Durham Commission take centuries for this.
No, I agree with you, Yuri. But my point is, it's more of the question of the image of the United States as a whole, as a country, because until we, it will be a stain, basically a stain in the history, if we just let it go, and if we don't get to the bottom of it, because I believe like millions of Americans demand answers. At least half of the nation demand answers. They still demand answers how that happened, what happened, and until we actually sort of find out the root cause and find out who did it, how did it, and why did it, we, I am like a voter, right? As a person who just a regular American and a voter, I want to be confident in our electoral system. If we don't get that stain off of our elections, people will be always skeptical about the results, no matter which side you will take. Will Democrats or Republicans will blame each other, and that will ruin everything eventually. Because if there will be more and more mutual, complaints and mutual finger pointing, and it may cause a real big damage. Somehow we need to find out the common ground and get to the bottom of it. I don't care if it's a Republican or Democrat, but we want to be sure that our electoral system is working, it's crystal clear, it's traceable, and it's fair. Because this is a cornerstone of our democracy, of our, constitutional republic. Would you agree with me?
I agree with you to some extent, but I also, I think that I can make it clear that I think about things like this all the time, because I decided to dedicate this half a year of my life to achieving a certain goal, to see how far I can go with my own energy and stuff, because it's only once in a lifetime that you get a fork in the road that you can pick up, as Yogi Berra would say. It's what's the word? The existential choice in human history. Either you deal with bad and you punish the bad, or you create more good. It's a very careful balance throughout the human history. And good rulers mostly dedicating themselves to creating more good. It's an abstract idea, of course. There's always some repressions, some punishment, etc., etc. But if you concentrate on punishing the bad guys.
No, Yuri, I'm not talking. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm not talking about the punishment. I'm talking about the truth.
No. Truth prevails when the bad guys are punished, when liars are punished. You can say the truth today. We see it every day. Like millions of hours every day are created telling the truth on YouTube, and we are yet to see the results, the practical application of this. We can talk about it. That's why actually one of the reasons why I went into this whole campaign mode, because I was becoming one of the crowd, one of the people who are just sitting and seizing and boiling over emotionally and burning emotionally, and it's not going anywhere. I need to get someplace, and I think that with the election of the Republican Congress, and then election of Republican president, I think it will be Donald Trump, because if he won't run, a lot of people will lose their trust and their the understanding of civil duty. Those who are for Trump, if he won't run, they say, okay, they made him stop. They forced him out of politics. So I think that he understands it better than any one of us. So with this being said, I would be a new president of the United States, new Congress of the United States. Of course, it's our duty to start all the investigation, every investigation that is called for investigating. Especially, it's interesting to me, if Democrats love this country so much, why didn't they come out clean and say, listen, okay, here is the documents, here's everything we know. Ask anybody. Just look into our pockets. We didn't steal anything. Just turn them out. Say, we didn't steal anything. Not take this posture that, how dare you to question the elections? It's what all thieves do. You suspect me? I took your wallet? Me? You suspect me? You're a thief yourself. You're a criminal yourself. You know how it happens on a tram in Odessa or
And,
in any other world.
I'm just wanted
Yeah,
to
but
basically add a couple of words to what you said. The reason is because if, as right now, I mean, I feel it. I speak to many people, and I spoke to many people in the past 2 years, and many people share the same idea, except maybe a very few, but most people share the same idea that they have doubts, basically, in the, like I said, in our electoral system, and
they're right.
and as a consequence, they have doubts in our judicial system,
They're
because
right.
if it, and that is basically, you know, how it works, right? It's basically, um, people just lose faith, lose confidence in our, in the entire government, in the entire political system. You name a judicial system, a legislation, executive, they just completely lose faith, and they lose confidence that the government is actually working for the people and reflects people's needs, and reflects on the people, you know, aspiration and expectations. So how do we fix that? Because it's a deeper problem than it seems, and that's the reason why actually we want new people, you know, not kind of career politicians to be reelected over and over again. We want new people. We want to have new representation, people who will just start kind of from the scratch in a way. What would you say about that?
No, first of all, it's not a scratch. I base my convictions on the U.S. Constitution and American way of life, American understanding how world should operate. With this said, I wanted to say it's on both sides. You know, the people lose faith in all the institutions not because they want to lose faith in all the institutions. It's the institutions that are at fault first. They failed
Correct.
people.
Correct.
On the other hand, in this country, we have a unique ability to re-elect a lot of people. And we didn't do that. Today, when people come to me and they commiserate and they say, Yuri, I'll vote for you this time. Are you registered? No, I'm not registered. Or I'm registered, but I never voted. Or I live in this country for 40 years and it used to be so good. The clean water, like in Tashkent, they used to say, before the Soviets came, you can drink out of the arik,
Mm-hmm.
and nobody locked the door. Same thing they'll tell you in Beirut before Italians came.
Mm-hmm.
So, so uh, go and vote, people. You don't vote. You don't make your voice heard. There are so many things that are, with all due respect, Fox News is a good substitute of, you know, you watch Fox News, it's like you participating in all the good things. You're a conservative, you're a Republican, you know who the bad guys are. Tucker Carlson tells you who the bad guys are. All good hosts tell you who the bad guys are. You agree with them. They're smart people, they're charming people, they're even funny people. The most popular hosts today on the Fox News, to me, are Greg Gutfeld. He won handily the late night show competition.
Mm-hmm.
He's ahead of any and all channels who offer this late night shows. He's funny, and his humor is the most actionable part of art, because people see their enemies destroyed, and this is a call for action. So a call for action is to go and change things. You don't like judicial system. You don't like the judges. Go and find a way to win in court. Try fighting your tickets that you think is given to you incorrectly. Traffic tickets, parking ticket. Go and try to prove your point. Make this judge think. When you're in court, you understand how much money is spent on those buildings, on the furniture, on the system, on the ropes, on all the guards, on all the prison, all the holding cells for the those who were about to stand trial. So it's a lot of money spent already. So make them work. Make them all. Make yourself work. Stand up for justice. Stand up for your own interest. I say, look at your life. What is good for you? Don't vote for other guys. Don't vote for people who live elsewhere. Live for your vote for your own interest. Define it. What do you want? You want to pay less taxes or more taxes? You want more privacy, less privacy? You want to be entrepreneurial, or you want to work for somebody else who will be, big enough of a name so you can go to a bank and say, I work for Trump organization. Give me a mortgage. Oh, Trump organization. Here's your mortgage, sir. Thank you very much. Nice to do business with you. So that's the role of capitalism. Stop being envious. Stop doing all those crazy stuff. Take care of your own life. And America, like no other country, that's why there is the One Direction movement to the United States mostly. Only very rich people leave this country. I mean, now it's the situation in Europe allows people to live in Turkey, but they keep the first home here. Most of them do.
Yes, Yuri. I agree with you on that. We have to restore faith in our country, restore faith in America. And in conclusion, basically, what would you like to say to Ukrainian diaspora here in the United States, and especially in Brooklyn, in your congressional district, the Russian-speaking or Ukrainian-speaking, you name it. Basically, you know who we're talking about. Just in very brief words and a few sentences, what would you like to say and what would you like to add to this conversation, please?
To add, rather to summarize, I think.
Summarize.
Yeah, I would say this. Don't be afraid of the future. Take care of the future today. Think what you want for yourself. Realize that you need friends in Congress, in all branches of power, actually, friends for Ukraine, and think of the way to win this situation, to win this war. The war in Ukraine should be won on the conditions that first are good for Ukraine. Then the world shouldn't be worried that Putin will start another war in 5 or 10 years or 15 minutes after he retreats from Ukraine, or achieve peace, because a lot of people are talking about talks today, right? Peace talks with Putin. We should think about the conditions that should be created to have a stable situation there on the border. And this stable situation, first of all, includes the defeat of Putin's Russia, one way or another. Without this defeat, there will be no stable border. I'm pro-capitalism. I'm pro-prosperity and small government. And it's not just the words, that anybody anything in terms of, more benefits. And we just have to bring law and order so people wouldn't be afraid to come out the house, go on the subway, etc. And we have to restore the total rule of U.S. Constitution and all other points that you can read about on my website, which is yuri4us.com. And I thank you very much for having me tonight.
Yes, Yuri. Well, yeah, I do appreciate you coming in for this interview on our channel. Our dear friends, it was my pleasure to represent again, and show you our candidate for U.S. Congress from the 8th Congressional District, Yuri Dashevsky. Check his website. If you have any questions, please comment on this video below. And we'll wish you good luck, Yuri, and I'm sure you will have a great support from our community. And I wish you that you will be our representative, and I'm pretty certain you will.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Andrei. And let's do it.
Okay, make America great again.
Let's make it.
Thank you.